We're on. Hi, it's Mark Small, Civil Discourse Now. This is December 4th, 2014. I am talking with our show's great spokeswoman in Hamilton County, Cassie Jackson. Cassie, how are you?
Good, Mark. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on again. So much going on.
Well, I'm not doing well given a lot of the strife right now. We're going to talk about some of the local strife specific in Hamilton County. Now, you've been keeping track, and you're up there having to deal with the problem all the time of Indiana's Lieutenant Governor-elect, Micah Beckwith, trying to infect public schools up there. Tell us what's going on right now, could you please?
Yeah, sure. Let me get started. So we had one of your and my favorite other advocates in Hamilton County, Beck, call the superintendent of Westfield Washington Schools yesterday morning, Mr. Paul Kaiser. And she recorded that phone conversation and then she shared it via social media platforms. And when I picked that up, because you know your girl is working with us, we're working as a team together, the three of us. I have identified that. I just put us as a team, so nobody. Anyway, when I saw that, what was concerning to me the most was that the superintendent said that his rationale for allowing Mr. Beckwith to come back, right? And I'm just going to quickly remind you that he was first scheduled with the teacher.
Yes, let's back up to how this whole thing started.
Sure. Yeah. So he was first scheduled to come in through one teacher who happens to be his personal friend. That teacher bypassed the policies, the protocol, like however they go about bringing in, elected officials or any adult to come into the building to speak to these classrooms, which happens often. And so they do have a policy around that. Well, he bypassed the school principal at Westfield High School and did not tell her about that and went straight to the superintendent, Mr. Kaiser. And the thing about that is that Mr. Kaiser and Chris Kaufman worked together in a previous school district. And even on the recording that you have, that we have from Beck, he noted that he trusted Mr. Kaufman and he brought him, that they had worked previously together. So when he came to Westfield Washington School District, he then hired Mr. Kaufman to come teach here. Anyway, Mr. Kaufman, the teacher, went straight to the superintendent to get a sign-off on Mr. Beckwith. And that created a lot of pause in us because why would you need to go around the protocol if there's nothing that you think would be a problem in bringing an adult in to speak to the classroom? And so then there was a big backlash from the community, right? We pushed back on that, and the school appropriately, I think, in response to this like acute gushing wound, if you will, they did appropriate triage because it was like the next day or 2 days later, and they canceled that. Mr. Beckwith then went on air multiple times on the radio station. He doxed the superintendent, had tried to get people to call and complain about this, and then the decision was reversed. That's where
just real quick. When the radio station in question, one of the co-hosts there was laughing about how many people just crushed that superintendent's voicemail. That only takes about 15 people. I mean, Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit more because he's a superintendent of an entire district, but it's not going to be open for hundreds and hundreds of people to be calling. It shuts down after that. And that even happened because our advocates were calling as well that day. And so I even got later in the day sent to the assistant to him as voicemail because it was full. So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I apologize for interrupting.
No, thank you. And so what happened is that on this recording, he told Beck that the reason Mr. Beckwith is now coming back was because a few students had asked that he was able to come. Those were his words. He did not go into explanation as to what, who the students were. He said he trusted Chris Kaufman, and Chris Kaufman, the teacher, told him that there were students that did, in fact, want Mr. Beckwith to come. And so therefore, because of the students, he made the decision to bring Beckwith or that he could, at this point, right? Bring Beckwith back in. Go ahead.
Okay, and there's concern in any instance in which an adult is coming into a public school these days, not the least of which being one, Beckwith is against vaccines. Two, he's given religious excuses to people who aren't even members of his church, excuses to get around the requirement of being vaccinated. Two, he's a Second Amendment advocate, and so I don't know if he's going to be carrying a gun. Three, he's been abusive to young people in the past, and we'll get into that in the next segment. But those are all legitimate concerns. I mean, that's why you want to know who's coming in to talk to kids in a public school. But in this, those are very present.
Say that again. What was the last thing you said?
I mean, in this instance, yeah, those are concerns. And it's not just generally at that point, it's specific concerns that parents would have.
Specific concerns, particularly because, as I noted, Mr. Kaiser, and I wrote him an email last night, which I've shared. You guys can check that out on my page. It's concerning because Micah has said that, you know, discrimination against the LGBTQI community, Jews, liberals is not discrimination at all. And he cites his source as the Christian Bible. And that is hate speech. That is not, there's no two ways around that. It doesn't matter if Chris Kaufman is a nice guy. It doesn't matter if Micah Beckwith can present as a nice guy. It is inappropriate, and it would absolutely, if I was a marginalized student in that school, it would make me entirely upset to know that the ground rules are that it doesn't matter. It's just you that he can do and say whatever he wants potentially.
So what's the status right now of his going and visiting the school and speaking?
So the status right now is that a lot of people are awaiting Mr. Kaiser's response to me. I mean, if you hear how he shut Beck down on her video or on her audio recording, he certainly did not. I'm confused how he is thinking that it's going to be appropriate and that professional adults, right? Medical, psychiatric, psychological, educational, right? Pediatric adults are going to let him pull one and try to tell a parent in the school district that his decision is based on these teenagers' wants. I'm going to put on my professional hat for 1 second and let you know that the two most rapid times of reorganization of the human brain across the lifespan happen in toddlerhood and adolescence. That's why you have a lot of behaviors in those two age groups that can be tough, because the frontal lobe is reorganizing, which means that there are decreased impulse control abilities. There's a lot of that little rebellious flair that's noted and has been studied across times, across cultures at that age. And they don't have critical reasoning skills like adults do. The human brain doesn't stop developing until approximately age 25 to 27. So a public school district superintendent who deals with ages approximately 5 to 18 should absolutely know that and should never tell a parent, which I found to be disgusting, both because he thought he could get away with that and professionals weren't going to push back, but also because he was talking to the way he was talking to Beck and hurried her off the phone, that he could get away with shushing a parent, literally, who has sent him enormous amounts of documentations as a mother in that school district.
Okay, we're going to cut right here and go to the next segment. Still Discourse Now. Mark Small, Cassie Jackson on, and we'll be shutting down right